It's The World This Week, 7 days, 4 Paris-based correspondents, 1 hour. The World This Week in partnership with the Daily Beast. We say hello to foreign editor Christopher Dickey. How are you, sir?
Very good. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Glad to have Robert Parsons, France 24's Chief International Affairs Editor. Also with us, Nicholas Norbrook, Managing Editor of the Africa Report. Your next cover?
Next cover, well, we have 4 of them this one, but the main one will be on Nigeria.
Main one will be on Nigeria, okay. And Julie Wono, the head of the Africa Bureau for Internet Without Borders. Welcome back to the show. The World This Week, where you can join the show on Facebook and Twitter, the hashtag World This Week. Wow, talk about a roller coaster fortnight. Colombia's president has gone from signatory of an historic agreement to end Latin America's longest conflict to last Sunday, loser by a whisker of a referendum to approve the agreement with the Marxist FARC rebellion, to now winner of the Nobel Peace Prize.
To this cause, I will dedicate my efforts for the remainder of my days. Thanks to God, peace is near, peace is possible, and it's time for peace. Together as a nation, we will construct it.
Christopher Dickey, a majority of viewers on the hashtag F24 debate think it was a good choice. Do you share that feeling?
Well, I think the problem is really with the Nobel Prize. It's always giving an A for effort. Gee, you tried really hard to make peace. It's always about good intentions, you know, and the way to hell is paved with good intentions. So apparently is the way to Oslo. So Henry Kissinger gets the Nobel Prize for bringing peace to Vietnam, except he didn't. Arafat, Rabin, and Peres get it for bringing peace to Israelis and Palestinians, except they didn't. Obama gets the Peace Prize when he hasn't even been president for a year. What was that about? You have to ask yourself, what is the idea? And the idea often is that they want to encourage people to keep on going. But the truth about Santos is that he had as good a peace as he could possibly get, and he couldn't sell it to his own people. He couldn't get them to come out and vote. And the ones who did come out and vote, voted against it.
Robert Parsons, you agree?
Yeah, essentially I agree with everything Christopher said there. The problem is, though, with something like that is getting the electorate out. And that evidently there was a lot of complacency in Colombia during the vote. People thought it was going to be a relatively comfortable victory for the yes vote. It didn't happen. There were serious weather problems along the west coast of Colombia, where a lot of the yes voters were expected to vote. They didn't. And it has to be said that President Santos himself did a pretty poor job of selling the deal. If he'd been a bit more active, he had a bit more of the populist touch, something which Uribe clearly has on the no side. If he had a bit more of that, it's almost certain that the yes side would have won.
Right, here's the puzzling bit. No sooner had the ballots been counted Sunday that Alvaro Uribe, Santos's predecessor, who led that charge against approving the agreement, he has suddenly changed tack and was no longer talking about the FARC solely as the world's largest drug cartel.
The Colombian people who voted yes, those who abstained, and those who voted no all have one thing in common. We all want peace. Nobody wants violence. We ask for an end to the violence, for protection for the FARC, and for the end of all crimes.
It's a bit puzzling, isn't it? And many were suggesting, Nicholas Norbrook, that what he was really angling for was a place at the table, at the bargaining table.
There is an element of the Boris Johnson. I mean, obviously, it's far from Brexit, but there's an element.
There's a lot of echoes.
There's a lot of echoes of Brexit. You know, this referendum. But what is exactly Uribe's game plan? Because if he's going to essentially scupper the vote, which is his right, he can campaign against it, obviously. If he's going to scupper it, he has to now offer something to replace it, and maybe that's part of the swing that we're seeing from him now. But so we've heard this was the best deal possible. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe there were things that could be taken out. Maybe the church would have been on side if some of this pro-gay part of the deal was taken out. maybe some of the stuff on business and land reform could have been worded better. I don't think this was the best deal. And perhaps, and this is probably the best case scenario, and maybe what the Nobel panel was trying to angle at, maybe there is a way in which a new referendum can be sort of put to the people. I don't think that's going to happen. That would obviously be the best case scenario. If not, then what? Are we going to see a return to full-scale war, some kind of uneasy truce, or are we going to see the slow disintegration of FARC over the next 2-3 years? How is Tymoshenko going to hold this rebel group together? You know, part of FARC makes money from cocaine smuggling. They've got their own revenues. They are going to be harder to control now. Maybe some of the less militant ones will slip back into the bush, slip over the border, disappear. It's hard to see how there's going to be an easy way out.
Julie Warno, you're a lawyer by training.
Yeah.
The pro-Uribe people, those who voted against this agreement, they're saying that the deal as it was put on the table didn't do enough in terms of justice.
Well, it's an argument that that we have to hear, and that the President Santos also probably heard before. But this said, as Nicholas was just saying and suggesting, what kind of deal can you obtain from an enemy if you cannot ensure him that, well, in terms of judicial procedures, probably the enemy will be. I mean, there will be arrangements, and I think that's probably where the difficulty will be from now on. That is to say, having the FARC being mobilized and motivated by a peace agreement, with the risk that some of them might, face justice. In other contexts in the history, we've seen that, belligerents, as we call them, in an armed conflict, find an agreement in terms of, I'm losing the word in English, in terms of pardon and reconciliation. We've seen that in Southern Africa. We've seen that in other contexts on the continent. Until now, it's a solution that has been found in order to appease as much as possible either the belligerents and also the victims of the belligerents. So it's probably an option that the President Santos, who is now a Nobel Peace Prize, will advocate for in the following days.
It also, sorry to interrupt there, it also has to be a deal that Tymoshenko can sell to the FARC. If he can't sell it to them, the risk will be down the line that the FARC will disintegrate. Bits of it will be for the deal, bits of it will be for against, and Colombia will be stuck forever after in the sort of chaos that's in the past. Yeah.
And also, it's surprising that the Nobel Peace Prize didn't go as well to the FARC leaders. Some voices asked why they, like Ingrid Betancourt, the former hostage of the FARC, she asked whether the FARC should have gotten the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, that's an important point. And Nicholas Norberg was mentioning how under the best of worlds, you'd have to go back to a referendum. However, Christopher Dickey, excuse me,
It's okay, partner.
The FARC leadership, many say, went into this referendum thinking they were popular. Are they going to want to go back to another referendum?
I don't think they're going to want to go back to another referendum, because I don't think you can have another referendum without actually making a lot of amendments to the existing deal. And I think that the FARC was just not willing to go much farther than they went. And it was a good deal for them. For instance, they made hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, in the drug trade, extortion, kidnappings. None of that money is accounted for. They're not contributing any of that.
So is the peace process dead?
I think it's in very difficult shape. I mean, for starters, you had a situation where right now the FARC was supposed to be going into these kind of compounds and giving up their weapons and basically walking into a situation where you were really building peace. Well, that's not going to happen now. So what is going to happen, I can't tell you, but nothing good is going to happen in the short run.
All right, we're talking about referendums where you organize them and you don't get the results you want. Nicholas Norberg alluding to it. Yeah, be careful what you wish for. The Conservatives in Britain wanted a referendum on Brexit. They got it. Theresa May wanted to be Prime Minister. She is. Keeping her mouth shut most of the summer, it was time to take the microphone at the Tory party conference in Birmingham.
So to everyone here this morning, and the millions beyond, whether leavers or remain, I say, come with me and we'll write that brighter future. Come with me and we'll make that change. Come with me as we rise to meet this moment. Come with me, and together, let's seize the day.
A little quicker in seizing the day were markets this week. The pound sliding against the dollar to 31-year lows after the Prime Minister first announced last weekend that she'd definitely trigger Brexit negotiations before the end of March. Nicholas Norbrook, when you look at that chart, what is your reaction?
That I'll feel rich when I go back to London. I have to buy a round in the pub. There's a reason, though. There's a reason why the foreign investors are looking askance at the UK, and it's partly because of the pronouncements at the Tory party conference. We saw, obviously, when Theresa May made her speech, but also when you started getting pronouncement about foreign workers and what they would have to do. There's a journalist called James O'Brien. He was speaking on his LBC show, and he said, I want to read you something from Amber Rudd's speech yesterday at the Conservative Party conference. For
the Home Secretary.
Yeah, absolutely. For the state must draw a sharp line of distinction between those who, as members of the nation, are the foundation and support of its existence and greatness, and those who are domiciled in the state simply as earners of their livelihood there. Oh, no, sorry. That wasn't from Amber Rudd's speech yesterday. I'm really sorry. That's from Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. So when you have the possibility of mistaking passages from Mein Kampf and from the Home Secretary, there's something very serious going on. It's a very illiberal turn that the UK is taking, and it's being cheered on by huge sections of the Tory party.
Well, let's take a look at how the newspapers covered this Conservative Party Congress. This is the Times of London. Firms must list foreign workers. As Nicholas was saying, the new Home Secretary promising a measure to force companies to declare all foreign nationals on their payroll. Amber Rudd, in her speech, also promising to tighten student visa rules and plans to train more British doctors to replace MDs imported from abroad. All this much to the delight of the Daily Mail and other right-wing papers. The Daily Mail, whose front-page headline on Wednesday reads, May Savage's Liberal Elite, Robert Parsons.
And it got worse today as well. We had the government saying that it would no longer take advice from foreign experts on Brexit.
Does that include the governor of the Bank of England?
It's extraordinary, the direction that Britain is going in at the moment. And whether at the end of this some sort of deal is going to be struck with the European Union remains to be seen. But I'm sure when a deal is eventually struck, it's not going to be on the terms demanded by Theresa May or the members of the British Conservative government. It's going to be on the terms demanded by the European Union.
Terms demanded by the European Union. And we heard François Hollande play hardball in a speech late Thursday, Christopher Dickey. And we also saw the president of the European Commission saying that Britain can't just cherry pick what it wants.
Yeah, basically, as we say in the States, no free lunch. You can't pretend you're in the European Union, work in the financial business in the European Union, have passport for your businesses in the European Union, and say, well, actually, we're not in the European Union. We don't want to listen. We don't want to obey any of the unfortunate regulations, as we see it, unfortunate regulations, and we don't want free movement of people. What's really interesting to me, looking at the American campaign and this campaign, is that in the American campaign, there's overt racism on the Trump side. It's clearly overt racism. It's about Mexicans. It's about blacks. But it's more complicated in Britain, where it's about Poles. It's about, there's this just general hatred of foreigners being expressed, which is
ironic, considering really the 500 years of plundering that the United Kingdom did of foreigners.
Oh, picky. Yeah.
Are you surprised, Julie Wono, to see this out of, Britain's always been this place that was just a little bit more moderate than the continent?
Absolutely. It's a bit surprising. I mean, it was surprising before June 2016. It's not anymore. I've recently heard Boris Johnson, the foreign foreign affairs ministers talking about Africa, a country. That was quite very interesting to. Maybe we should remind him that they're 55 or 54, depending.
It's a big continent.
It's a big continent. So yes, it's that that debilization of the UK politics is very surprising, considering the history and considering the political figures that this country has produced in the past. But I think generally in Europe there is a sort of Trumpization of politics, and especially of right-wing politicians. In France, Nicolas Sarkozy also used some tough words to introduce his program on immigration, on dealing with foreign southern countries, especially countries from Africa. There is also, of course, Marine Le Pen, which is very familiar with this, but also Hungary or
Poland
with the abortion. So I think it's a general trend in Europe, which reflects not only the fact that there is an economic crisis, but also that the institutions have probably not been sufficiently able to explain, to remind the populations what the EU and Europe was about, which is, there's a long history of building peace until now. So this is very worrying in terms of history.
We saw in her speech, Theresa May give this open appeal to Labour Party voters, essentially. And is that going to be successful? Is that a winning formula?
Well, when you see the leader of the Conservative Party be the first one to propose that the trade unions should have seats on the boards of companies, something that they do already in Germany, but which should have been really a plank of a Labour Party proposition. It's I think it's a very tactical move by Theresa May to seize the centre ground while the left in the UK goes through one of its rounds of bloodletting. And I mean, no one's really been able to articulate exactly your point about this turn, this Trumpization turn. Piketty brought out his book on inequality a few years ago, but we've not really been able to put our finger on how to explain or how to stop the flow of manufacturing jobs towards the east, for example, or to any kind of social protection for people working in sectors which are no longer competitive in their own country. And I think as a Brit, I took a huge slap in the face post-Brexit. But for me, it was, why haven't we been looking at these parts of the country who were, former Labour heartlands, who for the last 10, 15 years missed out on the boom of 2003 to 2008, have been sort of fed a diet of reality TV shows and Premiership football just to keep them kind of happy, and maybe the odd one or two can see some movement in their house price and think that they're doing well, but most of them have not done well. And I think in America it's even worse, the amount of stagnant wages that we've seen from the late 80s onwards.
We're going to pick up on that rage against the elites when we come back. You're watching The World This Week.